Hi, I'm back once again. We are going to be doing a wake cup with a closure using an adjustable wake cup. So please stay tuned. Please, if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do so and please turn on the notification button so that each time I post, you'll be notified. Please stay tuned. I'm adjusting the adjustable wake cup onto the mannequin head using T-pins. Adjusting the wake cup properly is very important. The closure we are going to be using for this wake cup is a 4x4 lace closure. This is a middle part, so I'm going to be using the middle line as my guide. So there's a line on the wake cup. So the middle line of the closure is what I'm going to place directly on top of the closure just to get it right. Many a times, if you are not careful doing a middle part closure, you end up having it tilted. So it's very important to adjust it properly. So I'm going to be using a needle and thread to sew that before I use the sewing machine to sew the tracks onto the wake cup. Let's get right onto it. So I made sure adjusting the wake cup, I made it as flat as possible. If not, when you are done, it's going to bulge up and look very funny. So I'm actually sewing from the top so that I can shift both sides and lay the closure flat. So as you can see, I sew a bit of the right side and then I move on to the left. I'm doing this because I don't want the situation whereby when I'm done, when I sew just one part to the end and then I move on to the next side and sew. If you sew from, let's take for example, you sew from the right side and you sew from start to finish before you move on to the left side to sew the closure down, there's going to be a problem. The closure is not going to be straight. So that's why I sew from one side, I sew a bit and then I move on to the other side and sew a bit. And I'm sewing from the top so that the closure can lie flat. So as I sew from the top, I'm able to pull the closure a bit to lie flat before I pick some of the holes in the net. And I'm looping it. I'm not just using running stitches, but I'm using blanket stitches so that it doesn't come off easily. And at the end, I knot it and then I cut it. I'm using the water right now so that the hair will be obedient. And I'm combing it. So you see we have our middle line. So when I'm done making the wake up, I wouldn't have a problem with the middle line. So this is what it looks like. It lays very flat. So, okay, so I'm holding it up to draw my lines so that I'll make it easier using the sewing machine to stitch it. So I'm using these as my guide. I'm using a pencil or a white marker to mark onto the adjustable wig. Okay, so this is my third guide. Each time you're making a middle part wig cap or a sew in, mind you, whatever happens on the right side should happen on the left side. If not, when you are done, one side will be heavier or lighter than the other side. So I'm using these as a guide, and as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. So I know which one is the first, which one is the second, which one is the third, and so on. So marking it is very important, especially for beginners. It's not usually necessary to pack all the hair at the bottom or the nape area. It's very necessary to fill the occipital area than the nape area. If not, when you are done, there's going to be a hollow section at your occipital area than the back, but that depends on the number of bundles you are using. If you have a lot of bundles, it's okay to fill it up from the beginning to the end. So this is what it looks like. The bottom is not very closely marked. So I'm threading the sewing machine, and then you soon see how I stitch or sew my tracks onto the adjustable wig cap. But sometimes the adjustable wig caps may be big depending on the person's head size. So what I do is I reduce the head, but we'll soon be seeing that. We are going to be doubling our wefts. So I'm going to put the wefts together and then use the sewing machine to bind them together so that we have a thicker or a heavier weft. This will prevent the wig cap from becoming smaller because I wouldn't have to sew so many tracks onto the wig cap. That's the reason why I actually double my wefts before I stitch onto the adjustable wig cap. So as I'm sewing, I hold it together so that it doesn't shift while I'm stitching them together. This technique is used even when you're using a dome cap. So doubling your weft is very important. Being done with doubling my wefts, I'm going to wear the wig cap so that you see what it looks like. There's a lot of space at the back, so I'm going to be holding it together so that I make the cap smaller, so that when I'm done sewing, I wouldn't have a bulge at the back or a very big space at my hospital area. So I fold the back into two. That's behind the closure. I put them together and then I sew about 1 inch because of my head size. But someone with a bigger head size, I might have to stitch a 1/4 inch, or someone with a smaller head than mine, I'm going to stitch about 2 inches. I'm cutting off the excess net now so that I begin stitching. This is what it looks like. So I'm about to begin by putting the tracks, the first track. I don't actually start from the flap with the adjustable hooks or holes. I start on the net, directly on the net. That's what I prefer, but if you want, you can start on the flap. So as I'm sewing, I run over the ends twice, back and forth, so that it stays intact without coming off. I'm using the marks that I made early on as my guide to sew the tracks onto the wig cap. And as I'm sewing, I don't stretch out the wig cap. I just leave it as it is and then I keep sewing. So this is my third track. That's exactly where the adjustable band is or strap is. For me, that's usually my third track. So this is my fourth one and I keep using the guide to sew as I go. And when I get to the end, I make sure I sew over back and forth. That's exactly at the end so that it doesn't come off. The weft was not long enough to complete the whole track, so I'm joining it to complete it. So I'm sewing back and forth to secure it so that we don't have loose ends. The one I cut off, I'm going to be adding it somewhere that I'll need a weft. So I'm not going to dispose of it. So I'm almost done here. And then I made sure I sewed over the closure just to secure it. Okay, so I'm cutting the net beneath the 4x4 closure, and you have to be careful so that you don't cut it off. That's going to be disastrous. So you need to be extra careful when cutting it off. I'm cutting off the threads that are hanging in the net. So I'm wetting the hair right now to make it more obedient and then comb through. This is what it looks like. Guys, at this point, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so and hit the notification button. I'm adjusting the wig cap once again onto the mannequin head so that I can straighten it out. So I use just water so that I can have it silky smooth. I use a comb and a straightener. So as I'm tonguing it, I use the comb beneath and then I use the straightener through it. And that will make it very silky and bouncy. So I'm going to use the same technique from beginning to end. From the beginning to the end. That's what I'm going to be doing. So I use my spray bottle with water and then I spray it onto the hair before I straighten it out using my straightener. I make sure my straightener is on the highest. My straightener is able to get to about 230 degrees Celsius. And it's very important. If not, you're not going to get the silky look or the very straight look that you are looking for. I like my hair looking bone straight, so that's why I use this technique. But if you don't want to use this, you can use just the normal straightener without water and just straighten it through. So I'm still doing this. I'm almost done. This is the closure part. A lot of us have struggled to find the best technique to keep our closures flat. But guys, I'm just going to show you a very simple way to do that. But you can still do that and still use your hot comb if you have one. That's totally up to you. I'm almost through with the straightening. And I can assure you that this is not a difficult method at all. You can give it a try to see what your hair is going to turn out into. Please be very careful when you are straightening the hair because the straightener gets really hot and it heats up the hair. So if you're not careful, the hair can burn you badly, or the heat can. I would advise that you use a comb to hold the hair so that it does not burn you. So yeah, guys, you can testify that this hair looks bone straight. This is the technique I was talking about early on that you can use to lay your closure flat. So I'm using the flat iron to do that. But you can use a hot comb if you wish, but you have to be very careful with it too because it gets really hot. I'm using a drop of hair polish to give it a little bit of shine, but that's optional. The ends are not very even, so I'm going to shape it a bit. I'm not cutting much off. I'm just shaping it to have the ends looking even. I'm repeating the previous step. Okay, so this is what it looks like. I'm going to be cutting off the net. You have to be very careful so that you don't cut into the net where you actually need. Just cut off the excess net. I'm applying a bit of wax to the top of the closure. And I'm going to use the hot comb to lay flat the front of the closure and to raise it up a bit. I'm applying a bit of sprit to give it a firm hold. We are done now, and this is the outcome of our work. This was the 4x4 closure that was used for a wig cap using an adjustable wig cap. The hair looks very silky and bouncy. Thanks so much guys for watching this video. If you haven't liked it, please do so, and please subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so that each time I post you'll be notified. Thank you for staying tuned. I appreciate it. I love you guys. Thank you. Bye.